You know, for decades, we've had one number that seemed to rule the world, GDP. But what if that number is telling us a dangerously incomplete story? What if it's ignoring our most valuable assets? Well, today, we're diving into a revolutionary framework for measuring a country's wealth, one that finally puts nature on the balance sheet.
All right, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at exactly why our standard numbers are failing us. Then, we'll get into the simple but really powerful idea that changes everything. From there, we'll check out the new analytical toolkit this gives us, see how we can actually recalculate a nation's wealth, and finally, look at what this all means for the future.
So, let's get right into it. Part 1. Why standard GDP fails. What is the big piece of the puzzle that our economic numbers are just completely missing?
I mean, really think about this for a second. Imagine a country cuts down its entire ancient forest. The timber sales go through the roof, and GDP looks amazing, right? But is that country actually richer in the long run? Of course not. The problem is, our current system counts the destruction of natural assets as pure economic gain. It's a fundamental flaw.
This slide just nails the core of the issue. A company has to account for the wear and tear on its machines and buildings, right? It's called depreciation. It's accounting 101. If they didn't, they'd be lying about their profits. But somehow, entire countries do the equivalent thing. We use up or deplete our forests, our minerals, our clean water, and GDP acts like it was all free. It's like we're running the whole planet without tracking our biggest expenses.
So, to fix this massive blind spot, the United Nations and other international bodies got together and created something called the System of Environmental Economic Accounting, or SEEA for short. And this isn't just a proposal, it's an internationally adopted statistical standard designed to finally connect environmental data with our core economic numbers.
Okay, so how does the SEE actually pull this off? Well, it all starts with a really simple but incredibly powerful idea, combining two totally different worlds of data.
So here we have a table you've probably seen 100 times. It's a standard economic view, showing the value created by different industries, all measured in dollars. This is business as usual, a purely monetary look at the economy.
And now, watch this. Here's the magic trick. We just add one more column. But this column isn't in dollars. It's in kilotons of CO2 emissions. And just like that, the entire picture changes. Suddenly, you see that the $800 million from energy production comes with a massive environmental price tag. This is the core of the SEEA, putting monetary data and physical data side by side to tell the whole story.
So once you have this combined view, what does that unlock? Well, that brings us to our new analytics toolkit. What can we actually measure now that we couldn't before?
The first thing we can do is create a whole new class of metrics called environmental ratio indicators. This is just a fancy way of saying we can now mix and match the physical and monetary data to get a much clearer picture of how efficiently our economy is performing, environmentally speaking.
And this toolkit gives us three main types of indicators. We can measure productivity and intensity, we can track something called decoupling, and we can check if the polluter pays principle is actually working. Let's touch on each one real quick.
Okay, so productivity and intensity indicators are all about efficiency. They help us answer a really practical question. How much economic bang are we getting for our environmental buck? For example, how many dollars of GDP are we generating for every gallon of water we use, or for every unit of energy we consume? We can finally measure that precisely.
Now, decoupling. This is the big one. This is the holy grail of sustainable development. Can we actually grow our economy without increasing our environmental impact? These indicators are the scorecard. They show us with cold, hard data whether our GDP can go up while our resource use goes down or stays flat.
And finally, we have polluter pays indicators. We all talk about the polluter pays principle, but is it actually happening? These metrics let us see if the environmental taxes and fines a company pays are even in the same ballpark as the environmental damage they're causing. It's a powerful tool for accountability.
So we've combined the data, we've created these powerful new indicators, but what's the ultimate goal? Well, that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, recalculating national wealth. It's time to adjust the bottom line.
You see, this whole system isn't just for making new charts. The SEEA actually provides a step-by-step process, a sequence of accounts, to directly adjust our most famous economic numbers, like GDP and national savings, to account for the depletion of our natural capital. Here's a super simple look at how it works. We start with a standard number, net value added, at $1,632 billion. But now we do something radical. We subtract the value of the natural resources we consume to get there. In this example, that's $6 billion. And we're left with a new, more truthful number, a depletion-adjusted net value added of $1,626 billion.
And this quote from the official framework just says it all. Depletion-adjusted net saving. That's what a country truly has left to invest in its future after it's paid to replace not just its worn-out machines, but also the environmental assets it used up along the way.
So what does a number like that look like? Well, in the example laid out in the SEEA framework, the depletion-adjusted net saving for this particular economy works out to $199 billion.
And that number, that $199 billion, that's the real bottom line.
It's what's actually left over for the next generation after we've accounted for the full cost of doing business, including the cost to the planet. It's a much more honest measure of whether we're creating sustainable progress.
Which brings us to our final section, the future of accounting. Now that we have this clearer view of progress, what happens next?
The logic here is really a three-step pyramid that builds on itself. Step 1, combine the physical and monetary data. Step 2, use that combined data to create powerful new indicators to track your real performance. And step 3, the top of the pyramid, use all of that to adjust your core national numbers like GDP and savings to get a true picture of your nation's wealth.
So really, the big question isn't whether we can measure the true cost of progress anymore. We can. The tools are here. The question is, now that we can see the numbers so clearly, what are we going to do about it? How will we choose to change course?